Why, hello there. It is 19 days until Elden Ring comes out on February 25th, 2022, and this is the Elden Wait Countdown. Today is a special episode of the Countdown where I will be talking about my plans for the release of Elden Ring, and I will also be answering the questions that you sent in for my 10,000 subscriber celebration. Let's get into it. So first, my plans for when Elden Ring finally releases, which is just in like a little bit more than 2 weeks at this point, and what I have planned is for everyone, I'm going to do an impressions series, and I think this will be coming out daily, and this will be featuring some gameplay highlights and me talking about where I'm at with the game, some theories I might have about the story or what's going on, and general impressions and reactions to the game. And then for patrons, I will be doing the full blind playthrough will be uploaded, and that will feature all like the warts and trying to play through it and stumbling around. So that's the full blind playthrough for patrons, and then I will be doing daily impressions videos for everyone. A little bit further out, I will be working to develop a website I've had for a while now, and it is eldenringlore.com, and it is where I hope to collect community lore content into one place to link out to all the great places people are making content on YouTube, various websites like Reddit, and then their own blogs, whatever else, all collected into one place so that you can sort of wiki-style search for it and find all the good content people have made on a certain topic. That's something that I'm hoping will also be something of a community effort. I will be running the website, but of course, I'll be looking for people to send me all the cool lore content they find so that we can make this really nice archive of all the cool things and all the cool content that the community comes up with. And after my impressions playthrough, my blind playthrough of Elden Ring, I don't really know, to be honest. I'm going to do whatever feels right and whatever I'm most motivated to cover, probably story and lore content, but I really don't want to put anything in stone yet until I really know what I find interesting and what I want to explore. But I can guarantee that I will definitely be doing some stuff around the story and lore, at least that the community is doing, and sort of looking at the different ideas that people have, and generally being really immersed and getting to understand the world of Elden Ring, the story behind it, and just having a lot of fun with it. And now getting into the questions that everybody sent in to sort of celebrate hitting 10,000 subscribers, and I'd like to once again just say, I'm blown away by the support, and I really appreciate it, and you all sent in some very good questions, and it should be fun answering them. I'll be talking about some more Souls-related questions first, then some Elden Ring stuff, and then some sort of miscellaneous questions. And as a disclaimer before I get started, I know that I will definitely say some names wrong, and I apologize for that. I will put in my best effort, but if I do, it's not on purpose. I am just trying to say the names because I want to give credit to everyone who did give questions, and that brings me to my other sort of caveat is that I definitely will have forgotten some questions or not been able to answer some, and I apologize for that. I've taken what I could and sort of grouped them for more common questions. Let's get into it. First, we have a question from Abshwar, Titan Boss Slayer, and Cosmic Lawn Branch, and they asked what my path through the Souls series was. Like a lot of people, I got into this series with Dark Souls 1 in 2011, and I didn't quite click with it right away. It was more around the time when Dark Souls 2 was about to come out where I sort of dug into it, and I started to get more involved in the community, and then from there I just got continually involved in the community, and then I made the Lore Hunter, which was originally a lore blog for anticipation of the release of Bloodborne, a place where I could sort of collect my lore thoughts because I was getting involved on the subreddit heavily. I was a mod of the Bloodborne subreddit before the release, and I just wanted a place to collect all content into one place, and eventually that transformed into collecting community content into one place like I'm doing with Elden Ring lore, and then eventually down the road a couple years later that led to the creation of the channel, and the rest is history. I covered Sekiro quite heavily before release, and then I'm doing the same thing now with Elden Ring. Salt and Dragons asked what my favorite Souls game is, and that is Bloodborne. That is sort of going to be a trend with some of these questions. It will be obvious that Bloodborne is my favorite because when it comes to favorites of the series, often it comes back to Bloodborne. And this is immediately apparent with the Shooter Addicted asking who my favorite Souls boss is, and my favorite boss in the series is Ludwig. I just find that fight to be really fun, really challenging. It took me forever at BL4, which is the base level in Bloodborne, but I think it's a really fun fight, and it's just an awesome looking boss, and it has one of the best cutscenes with the Moonlight Greatsword, just one of the best cutscenes in any game that From Software has made, and I just love everything about it. And Revion Lambent 4 asks what my favorite weapon is, and that is probably the Saw Cleaver. I just think it feels really good, especially the transform attack for the Saw Cleaver. Especially playing through BL4, you get really used to using the R1, L1, L1, R1 sort of rinse and repeat combo, and it just feels really good. But otherwise, I also really like the Zweihander because I'm also a big fan of strength weapons generally, and just quality weapons, and just large slabs of steel and smacking them against people. So those are probably my top two weapons. And Skoski asks, what is my favorite level up waifu in the series? And I'm going to have to go with Maiden in Black. I like her design a lot, and I think she has a really interesting place in the story. And I feel eternally upset that I step on her head at the end of my first Demon's Souls playthrough. But I think the Maiden in Black just has a cool design. And yeah, I'd go with Maiden in Black for my favorite in the series. And Snag asks, what is my favorite armor set? And for that, it's a tough one. There's a lot of cool ones, but I think the one that stands out for me most of all, again from Bloodborne, is the Bone Ash set. I just think it looks really cool. You're like some gothic witch, and I always just enjoy wearing that armor, and I think it looks cool. And the Russian Knight asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like Maldron the Assassin? And I'm going to give Maldron a 0 because he's a tryhard. And then Babe Johnson asks, who is your favorite FromSoft NPC? And this is a really tough one just because there's a lot of great stories. But I think I'm going to have to go for Siegmeyer from Dark Souls 1 just because I really like the inversion of like the adventuring hero that they bring up there. And Siegmeyer himself is just so likable and charismatic. And I just feel like if I was a hollow going to Lordran, I would be like Siegmeyer. I also want to give a shout out to Ludlith because he has one of my favorite lines from the whole series where he says that he may be but small, but he will die a colossus. That line is just eternally in my head, and I really thought that was a great delivery for that line, and I think Ludlith is also an interesting character. And now getting into some Elden Ring related questions, Kuba OTA asks, what is it about Elden Ring that captured your attention so much? And for me, from like 2019 when it was first announced, it was really just that it was the return of a From Software action role-playing game. You know, I enjoyed Sekiro a lot, but it wasn't the same. And it had been Dark Souls 3 had been a few years out now, and especially now in 2022. It has been quite a few years since Dark Souls 3 came out now, and I'm looking forward to getting back into a big fantasy world and just exploring it and getting to know its rules and all the characters. So that's really what drew me in. And then having George R. R. Martin as part of the project too is just very interesting because I knew it would necessitate some differences in how From Software normally approaches their design. And that sort of rolls into the next question from Stamwise Gamgee and Peter Fisher, who ask, what am I most excited about for Elden Ring? And that is maybe a boring answer, but exploring a new world. That is what is my big draw to these games. It is the story that draws me in, but really it's the world. I think From Software are unmatched when it comes to world building and having a big, giant open world to explore with tons of item descriptions and environmental storytelling, and just all the things they do really well are the number one draw for me with these games in general. And then Pure Vessel, Rich Lacera, Hero M, and Cozy Games asked, what build will you use on your first playthrough? And that is a really good question. I tend to go like a quality build just so I have the biggest range and weapons I can use. And as I mentioned, like Zweihander, Longsword, like those are all weapons I like to use and they work well with quality. But this time it is going to be really tough, and if I was going to lean toward one at this point, it might be a mix of strength and faith just because incantations look really interesting, and I just generally like strength builds, so I think I'm leaning that way, but I think I'm going to let myself off the hook and just be very open and basically go with what's cool. Jason Murray and Matthew Stewart ask, thoughts on Elden Ring DLC? And that is getting ahead of things a little bit, but I think there will be DLC. I think this is, their big series. I am not necessarily expecting A sequel, I think there's a good chance. I think it really depends on how it goes overall, but I am expecting more Elden Ring regardless, whether that's a DLC, a sequel, whatever. I think there will be more Elden Ring after the base game, but it is hard to really think too much about that because there's a lot of games still ahead of us. We have the the entire game still ahead of us, so but I think there will be more following that. It's probably something they're even working on now, so. And then Boxlod asks, what kind of Ashes of War are you hoping for? And I don't think I have anything in particular, but I really want them to be more individualistic, and that's something Miyazaki talks about from Dark Souls 3 to Elden Ring. That's one of the things they're doing is making them more individualistic and interesting. And I think the ones that do something a little bit weird are the most appealing to me. The extra moves can be cool, but I tend to like it being an extra utility. And I've noticed that with like the closed network test, I sort of gravitated towards something that would help shore up a weakness. Like if I'm going melee using Thunderbolt or, the Reduvia Bloodblade, that it was good to have a little bit of range that you could sort of fall back on if you needed to. But I like the ones that are sort of interesting and weird, and I think those will be the ones that I really enjoy. There was one clip in the gameplay where they showed like some skeletons attacking. It appeared to be an Ash of War, and I'd love some more like weird Ash of Wars like that where just some strange thing happens. I think that's what I would enjoy the most. Isaac Franco and Hated Follower ask, what sort of twist are you expecting? Now, we all know we've been talking about space and some cosmic themes and something like that coming in. The more I think about it, the less I'm convinced that it will be the big twist, really, because that was something that Bloodborne did, and that would be sort of Bloodborne again. I think that there will be some twists and turns, but I think they will be more personal and political, just based off of the characters that George R. R. Martin has made, and just having that rich world with all these different factions, I think means we might see some unexpected interactions with characters and just some like unexpected reveals for what is going on behind the scenes in Elden Ring. Tom Blank asks, what part of the Elden Ring journey has been my favorite? I've enjoyed, doing the stuff for the channel. I think my favorite things have been when I was having guests on, when we had heard nothing about Elden Ring. It was just really great getting to talk to people, especially people I really looked up to and content creators who I followed for a long time, like Quaylog, and then I got to talk to people like Dan Tack, who I talked with recently again, and the Saint Riot and other members of the community, the Ashen Hollow, just really cool people sharing their passion for the games and sort of talking about what they hope for from Elden Ring was really cool. And then I think this item description countdown has really brought a lot of people in. I think it's been a really fun way to sort of get the last like 100 or so days out, and I think it's had really good interactions, and I've really gotten to know some people, and through this process I feel like it's been really just a fun way to get through the last 100 days, which was amazing because I had no expectations to have that amount of lore to work with. So it's been really fun getting to speculate with everyone and the lead up to Elden Ring. Jared Chamberlain asked, do you think Elden Ring will have any shortcomings, and what are they? I don't expect Elden Ring to be a perfect game. Obviously, no game is perfect, and I think it is often some of the weird quirks and things that may not work for some people that make a game really special or really shine, and I'm sure that Elden Ring will have some of that. I think if I was going to nitpick one thing, I think that the Sites of Lost Grace are not nearly as iconic as like the lanterns or the bonfires. They're visually kind of small, and I don't think they're always the easiest to see. I think maybe there could have been a more evocative design there if I was going to nitpick. And then in general, I don't know if it'll end up being a shortcoming, but it just seems like such a large game with so much going on that I do think at some point, maybe they will have reused a few mini bosses for a dungeon or like a few field bosses. Maybe we'll see some repeats like we saw with Sekiro. And, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just seems like such a big world that I have trouble understanding how they could fill it out and have everything be completely unique without some like tactical reuse. And now we are getting to some miscellaneous questions, and the first one is from Gabe Keener, and they ask, what games shaped me? And so growing up, big games for me were like Kirby, Super Metroid, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, Pokemon, and then as I got older, like Mass Effect, Elder Scrolls, Fallout. So nothing too out of the ordinary. I think like Roller Coaster Tycoon, for instance, I talked with Polygon in an article about I'm an architect in my job, and it was one of those original things that got me really interested in design was Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I got to talk about that in the sense of like that means that looking at like Dark Souls and stuff, the architecture obviously is always interesting. So I would say Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 was like surprisingly foundational because I just really like designing queuing lines and roller coasters and stuff, and I think that really got me into that mindset at an early age. And a 19 Psychobait 60 asks, what are some of your favorite non-FromSoft games? I just rattled off a bunch, especially that were big when I was younger. But other games that I really enjoy, like the Dishonored series, Slay the Spire, Blasphemous, I really love, and of course Hollow Knight. So there's, there's a few and there's many that are sort of Souls-like in nature, but I just really like interesting worlds. And then in the case of Slay the Spire, which doesn't have as big of a world, I just really like a deck builder. A roguelike deck builder is a fun game type to me. And then Harrison asks, what is your day job? And I spoiled this question with a couple questions ago. I am an architect. I do mostly healthcare architecture, and so that was pretty cool. And it is all going back to I really like design. So in my job, I do a lot of design work, and then for fun, I talk a lot about design and narrative and stories. So it all sort of comes together that I'm just a big nerd for design. And then Sean Sweatledge asks, what studio besides From would you want to see make a sequel or spiritual successor to a Souls game? And that is a really tough question for me to answer because I guess the real answer is that I don't really have a studio that I would want to choose because I think there's a lot of things that are unique to From Software and their approach to design that just sort of necessitates that it's sort of the stuff they make, which I feel is sort of not something another studio could really imitate. I mean, we've seen Bluepoint do an admirable job, but of course they brought in their own sort of design sensibilities, which aren't as strong for me as what From Software does. But I think if there was going to be a world where I felt it really gave me that same sense of adventure and that same sense of like mystery and wonder, would probably be Team Cherry with Hollow Knight. Not that I would really want them to make a Souls game per se, but I think that they make worlds and they seem to understand that sense of mystery and uncovering the world and just having unexpected things in the same way that I really enjoy with the Souls games. So I guess if I had to choose, maybe they could do like a 2D Souls game. Team Cherry is my answer. And then G. Saranen asks, if you could make a game in collaboration with From, what kind of world would it be? And am I interested in making games myself? If I could collaborate with From or ask them to do something in particular, I guess I would be sort of interested in a sort of like fantasy sci-fi world, along the lines of like The Dark Tower or Star Wars. So, where there's mystical elements and sort of magic, but it's still that sci-fi and it's often that post-apocalyptic kind of rundown sci-fi would be really fun. So I guess that would be something I'd be interested in seeing. And then, am I interested in making games myself? Not for video games, I enjoy talking about them more, but I did for a number of years and still have this pipe dream of someday making a board game. I really enjoy board games. I don't get to play them very much anymore, but I really like board games as this analog design and the fact that the design of the game is just very apparent to players because they have to be part of the engine to sort of make the game run. So I find that very appealing. So if I could, I would love to be able to design a board game one day. And rounding out the questions is Jacob Yeager, who asks, what are some of your favorite books? Some of my favorite book series are The Dark Tower, Lord of the Rings, Fahrenheit 451. I obviously love Lovecraft stories and cosmic horror. And then as a kid, I really enjoyed The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is part of the Narnia series. I thought that was really fun going around on a boat. And then a newer one for me is The Long Walk by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. I think that's a very dark and depressing story with a really sort of heady concept with it. And there you have it, 19 days until Elden Ring comes out, talking about my schedule for the release of Elden Ring as well as answering some questions to celebrate reaching 10,000 subscribers. Again, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot for me, and I can't wait to enjoy the game with everyone. And I'm going to really enjoy rounding out these last few weeks because we are getting to some very good item descriptions. If I ever do another item description episode, it's been a couple days now, but we've had a lot of stuff going on. but I hope to dive right back into it and get to some of my favorite item descriptions that are still yet to be discussed as we get to the final days until Elden Ring comes out. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, and if you want more item descriptions and then all the stuff I talked about earlier after the release of Elden Ring, please consider subscribing to the Lore Hunter. Thanks for watching.